I'm live. I knew I was alive. Now I'm live. Well, I was just testing. Should I dance? Should I play a song? And I do that. I'll get people interested in video and play a song. Attempt to play a song. Give me a moment here. Be patient with me. I don't really have this. Set it up. That's as far as that'll go. Move these wires around here. Plug them in the proper places. Okay, now I'm ready. Hope nobody's in the room. Good. I don't know. Maybe I won't publish this. Maybe not. I don't know. Welcome to the circus. Welcome to the carnival of life. The carnival of life. The amusement park called Earth. The amusement park called Earth. Earth is the amusement park. Earth is the amusement park. Welcome to the amusement park. Earth, the amusement park. Earth, the amusement park known as the Earth. What was I going to talk about? Oh, investing. Yeah. So most people only think about is, well, this is my opinion. It seems to me that the general trend is that I have money, but I don't know what to do with it. I don't really understand it that well. I'm a novice. I'm not an expert. So I seek out people that are more knowledgeable about me. I find those people in the world and I look at what they're saying and I try to glean information from what they're saying and make a determination on stock purchases. Not so much if it could be that they're talking about climate change. And I want to know how people are going to adapt, right? What businesses are going to be successful and adapt well in the future climate change. So there's like one company in particular that comes to mind. There's a few of them, and they're greenhouse companies. So they have all their growing is done in a controlled environment. So it's not just at the whim of what happens outside. You can control the temperature, you can control the humidity, you can control the amount of water more efficiently than if you were to have open areas of land out in the open, under the open sky. Because you don't know if it's going to be too cold or if it's going to be too wet or if it's going to get dry or if there's going to be a lot of wind storms there or something that's going to affect the crops, right? So you won't get a consistent harvest. So there will be inconsistencies. Some years you have a good harvest, some years you have a bad harvest because of the weather. So if the scientists are right about we're going to lose the cryosphere, which is the part of the earth that is cold, it's ice covered. Now, as the ice cover diminishes, what that'll do is that'll affect the normal weather patterns. So the normal weather patterns that we're used to are going to change more. There's going to be more variations. There's going to be places where it didn't never rain that hard and now it's raining really hard. There's going to be places where it didn't get windy that much that are now really getting really windy a lot. There's other places that used to be dry and now they're more wet. So I mean, the problem is adapting to that, right? How do you roll with the punches? If the climate's going to work against the human race, then it seems to me that humans have to adapt. We have to figure out a way to make that so that so business, right, as usual, in the markets will function to the greatest benefit for the most amount of people. So my thoughts on investing as an investor are, I find a company and I really like their product. I use their product. And it's one of my favorite products in the store that I buy on a regular basis. So I make a decision on if I'm going to buy stock. I'll buy stock in that company because it's at least something I know, right? I have a personal experience with using their product. So that's just one way I invest. I'm not an advisor here. I'm telling you what I'm doing, right? So don't make a decision. You're going to have to go and find out what you want to do as an investor, what your goals are, what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to accomplish. And I'll save you a lot of time right now. If you're not an ethical person and you don't care about the unintended consequences of your behavior, or if you're just somebody that they want to make a lot of money and they want to make it really fast. They want to take money and they want to make that money become as much money as possible in the fastest amount of time. That's their goal. So you might want to stop watching me. You're going to go somewhere else and find other people that know what they're talking about, that are knowledgeable and with stocks in the stock market and that. Don't listen to me. Just turn this video off and go find another video and watch that. If that's what your goal is as an investor, what I just said, to make as much money as possible in the quickest amount of time. Because okay, you work at a company, or let's say you've worked at a lot of different companies. You've been a temp employee, right? So some of the companies you've worked at, you liked their business, you liked how they ran their business, you liked the company, people were easy to get along with that you worked with. The employees were treated really well. They were recognized. And so you later on, you're as an investor, you have choices to make, right? Where should I invest my money? So you invest the money in a company that was the company you worked at, where it was a good business. They were environmentally conscious. They were good to their employees. They had a good, nice, good work, safe workplace. It was people were friendly and helpful. And so that's another style of investing, right? That you see, like, all these little children, right, in the grocery stores, and all these kids, these young kids, and you think about what is the future of the earth going to be like for the coming of age, for these new people that are being born, that are going to grow up and become adults. What kind of planet, what kind of earth is it going to be? Lots of really beautiful swimming holes and really clean beaches, and really beautiful gardens, and people will have like leisure time. Everybody will be a painter or a musician or a writer or a sculptor, or they'll just play sports all the time. So everybody will do what they want to do, and all the work will be done by the robots. So, or maybe people have to go and live underground. I think in the far future, everybody's eventually going to have to move underground because the surface of the earth will get too hot, into like inhospitable. So they'll just dig underground and build cities and tunnels to those cities underground all over. There won't be any Mars and all that. Humans aren't going to go out into space. We're going to go underground. That's where we're going. That's my opinion on that. But in the meantime, dealing with bringing up climate change again, right? So you think about how is it that my own behavior and the choices that I make personally, how does that affect the atmosphere that I live in and depend upon for air to breathe? So I'm breathing, right, all this air all the time. And that air is like, how clean is it, right? Is it good for me? Is that air, does it have like aerosolized jet fuel, like burnt diesel? And is it like really sooty and like dirty and grimy air, and it's like hard to breathe. You can't even see 100 yards. It's foggy, right? Because of the air dirty. Or drinking water, right? You go to the tap water and you turn it on and it's like, it's got lead in it, or it's got chemicals, industrial chemicals in the water. So there's companies and businesses that are directly involved in, or they're subsidiaries of bigger companies. Well, that company, they purify water, so they treat the sewage, right, raw sewage, and they make it so that it be almost potable, so it just goes back into the river, back into a lake, or back in the ocean. And we need to reuse that material. That's just like food waste that's gone through people's digestive systems. That food, that the bulk of the nutrients are still in that, so they could capture the sewage, right, and treat it and have fresh water, right? Just filter the water so good that it's perfectly clean to drink, and then have the human manure, the sludge, and then the other part of the whatever nitrates and phosphates or all the other chemicals that are in that water are taken out. So while they purify the water, they have these chemicals, and then they can use those chemicals for fertilizers or it's the same thing with landfills, right? What is a landfill, right? What's it doing, right? It's a bunch of material. It's a bunch of substances and materials that can't be reused efficiently. If they are reused, it's more expensive to reuse the material than to get virgin material. So it's more expensive to reuse or recycle than it is to get brand new material. So what we do is we take all this material and we bury it in the ground. So if you're investing in a garbage company, yeah, there's risks involved. I mean, there could be something happens in the community, right? And they get sued because the water gets polluted, or there's it's a real dangerous job. I mean, working at a landfill probably involves going out and fixing machinery if it gets all tangled up with wire, or like electrical wires or whatever on the wheels of the machine. So they have to go out and fix it, and it's really dirty in that environment. So they have to wear the Tyvek suit and spray everything with Lysol. And so there are the obvious advantages are that everybody has to have garbage removed off the street and put in trucks and taken to places where they can bury it. But it's not. I know you're probably thinking but I'm not talking specifically about environmental problems. I know it's polluting the environment. It's contaminated the drinking water because it wasn't lined properly when they made the landfill. They didn't put the poly mill down good enough and seal it, so some of it leaked out, right? But they can go and patch that. I'm sure they can figure out a way to put a patch so it doesn't leak out into the groundwater. And then they need to somehow, before they even build these places, they need to dig like a channel and have it have if there's any drainage, have the drainage go into the drainage network that's under the landfill, so they could actually build a landfill on top of it. So if a landfill leaks, it'll go into the drainage channels. They'll have cement pipes or whatever, plastic, big pipes that'll have a leaching pond, right? If anything leaches out, or they can, I don't know. But you invest in this company and they own that. So in the future, if they can dig that material up and then be able to recycle it for a profit, so comes a time in the future when it's no longer cheaper to get virgin materials. There's a time in the future when the virgin materials are more expensive than recycling it and reusing it back as a consumable, making it into a consumable item again, make it into like plastic lumber. You can make fences, fence posts, or railing, or decking, or chairs, tables. You can make plastic, recycle the plastic, and make things, remelt it down, or sort it and remelt it down, clean it, sort it and remelt it down, or whatever, grind it up, have it settle in a tank, and have it separate the different layers of it if it floats at a different level or whatever. Somehow refine it out, uncrack it, right? I don't know. So you're investing in companies that do that. That's like a really good thing to invest in, right? For me, I think like a company that makes greenhouses, right? They build most of the materials that they supply to the other companies. They're building these big greenhouses. I can't get greenhouses out of my mind. I think in the future, everything's going to be in a greenhouse. Your melons, most of your citrus, all your vegetables, your root vegetables, everything's going to be grown indoors, either hydroponically or in a soil, in a recycled soil base. All indoor grown. So the indoor growing, you can control the lighting, you can control the temperature, you can control the humidity, and then you have like you're putting a barrier up against the elements, so you're no longer at the mercy of like high winds or something like hail or something like that. So, but that's what I'm investing in. I'm investing in companies that can, right? That's all they do is they can fruit or they can vegetables. That's their main. Or they flash freeze. I think I have a subsidiary of one that does that. And then I have companies that are plant-based, like plant-based meats, and like companies that make veggie burgers, and they call them fake meats because it's a meat, but it's a phony meat because it looks like meat, it smells, it might taste like meat, might have a texture like meat, but it's not real meat. It's just they take a plant and they make the plant and add a flavor to it that'll make it that mimics that flavor, and the way it's cooked and how it smells, and that they've engineered that material to simulate the smell, the taste, the texture of meat. And I think, well, that's another thing. That's another wave of the future. No longer can it be. It's not habitable. There's areas where the land is so hot. It's so hot and dry that anything that's alive there dies. Like any cow or cattle, or any kind that go out into this area, open area. It's so hot that the cattle die. Or there's a big blizzard, right? There's this odd weather, right? All of a sudden there's this huge blizzard and all the cows are out there get frozen solid. So, and then the people are forced to buy food that's cheaper. They have to buy food that's less expensive. So let's just say in the future, meat costs a lot more money. So the price of meat keeps going up, and meat and eggs and dairy keep going up higher and higher and higher and higher. The prices keep going up. And then plant-based products, they get more they get better flavored, they get less expensive, they get more. There's more areas, there's more places where they're growing the plants that make the food, the base of all the plant-based foods, right? So you have a biodiversity also, that you want to make. People lament, they get sad and they cry that animals are dying, right? Animals are dying, they're becoming extinct, there's less and less, and there's like only a few of those animals left, and they're in these zoos, and there's like maybe 10 of them left or something, and all the areas that they used to live in are like, those animals can't reproduce and thrive in those areas anymore, because the areas that got logged, mined, or they logged it and then it was made into a soy farm, and then they graze cattle on it or whatever. So there's maybe these places where, maybe I'm saying that if it costs more money to feed an animal and get the meat, get the nourishment from the animal, all the factors involved, like the growing of the feed that the animal had to eat, that the desertification of areas are becoming all sand dunes. Well, you can't graze a cow on sand dunes. The climate's changing and it's drying, and the deserts are drying up. They're just becoming more sandier, right? So there's cows there's all these right now. You can have your cattle and have them pasture on the range on this wild land, and they find enough to eat to keep them alive. But it may be, if the climate changes and it gets hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter, eventually it's just going to be sand dunes. There won't be any shrubbery there. There won't be any grasses there in those dry lands. So there's another problem with desertification, and then the lowering of the water table in the growing areas, the communities, farming communities, where they keep lowering the water table to get to water where they can water their fields. There's a problem. There's a lot of problems that are going to become more and more apparent to people as time goes on. Is the scientists and the scholars and the thinkers, they will be vindicated. What's going to happen? They give us a gloom and doom, right? That's what their report is. Their report says it's getting worse. The water, the climate's changing. It's becoming less and less and less farm friendly and hospitable. It's becoming more inhospitable in the future. So investing, if you think about how you're spending your money, when you spend your money is being spent to work towards a solution to alleviate a problem in the world that is a result of climate change. So if you can find a business or a company that's publicly traded, that their specific kind of equipment or products that they make are either a direct or indirect remedy moving away from a carbon intense. So it's less carbon used. There's less carbon dioxide produced as energy, as a byproduct of the energy from that type of, right? So the other thing is that as a youth, I was very hopeful. As a youth, I was like all full of high ideals and believing that the world will become a better place for the young people coming about, that there will be more recreational areas, that there will be more, that food will be more healthier, that it will be less expensive to live, that people won't have to work a 40-hour work week. So the common hours, everybody would only work like maybe a 20-hour work week. And that would be a standard, right? So, but a lot of things are probably going to be being done by robots. That's what I think, especially in manufacturing. There's less and less and less human beings actually handling the end product, right? It's all been broken down in step-by-step stages where the least amount of human intervention is possible to produce a piece of electronics or a piece of machinery. So machinery prices will come down in the future. Now, what companies are positioned well in robotics and their brand is popular is in robotics, and then they also have like printers or whatever. They have consumer products. So I'm just saying, if you find a company that makes like products that you like would buy at the store. If you go to Walmart, you buy their products, or wherever you're at, you're using their services, or you're buying their products. That's a company you should. I shouldn't say you. I should say that's what I do. Is I invest in those companies. And I've been the highest I'll go is like on a stock price is I don't buy a stock over $200. I usually think that's a lot, and it'd be better to divide that up more into, I don't know. But some of my winners, the stocks that have done well, have kept me from not panicking. I mean, I'm not. People have told me, they say, you don't want to own a lot of different companies. All you want to do is you just want to own like one or two, and watch them all. Buy them when they go down and watch them all the time, and study their financials, and never have more than like three at most, right? So you're just focusing all your attention on like three different companies. Or now, if you're employed, like they offer a 401k plan. Usually in the 401k plan, there's a cat here on me. In the 401k plan, they give you the option whether or not you want to buy company stock, along with a list of mutual funds, usually like that are weighted toward whatever age you're going to retire at. So there's a 2020 fund, and that's if you're going to start drawing on it in 2020. There's like a 2025 fund if you're going to, and it's not really clear about what the holders are, who the holders are in that fund. Usually there's a top 10. If you go to like Morningstar, I think they'll list those for the blue chip, for the bigger companies. For your high market cap companies, usually have more information than your small cap companies. I've noticed that on financials. So I have some interest too. I like rock hunting, and I used to go hiking a lot, go climb sides of cliffs and go into caves, and used to do a lot of stuff when I was younger that I don't do now that I'm older. But I was talking to my older brother, and he says, "Oh yeah, you don't want to be in the stock market because you're just always looking at it. You spend all your time looking at the stock, looking how much it is, seeing how much it's going up or down, watching for something that's going to spike and go high, and then you can sell a little bit off, and then it'll go down. You don't know, but if it spikes up, and then you go, oh, I'll top it. I'll take a little bit off the top, right? And you use that, put it on the sidelines, and wait for an opportunity to arise where a stock will all of a sudden one day the price will just crash down hard. And you're like looking at that company, it's been on your watch list, and you thought, wow, I really like to own that company, but it's so expensive. Maybe I'll just wait till the price goes down. And then when the price really goes down a lot, I'll buy it up. And then the price will go, will it go back up? Or will it keep going down? See, so you don't know that, right? So that's a guess, so I don't know. But that I have to say I've done that before, but sometimes it'll be like it'll be like a stock just keeps going down, keep going down. Can I buy it? And it goes down, and I buy more, and it goes down. And I buy more, and it goes down. I buy more, and it goes down. And then it's like they get a notice from the exchange. Your stock has been under such and such a value for a certain period of time. We are going to take your stock off of our list. So the stock will get off of that exchange, and it'll go on to another exchange, and then, or they'll do what's called a reverse split. Now, don't think oh wow, that must be good. Not always. I mean, yeah, what they do is if you have like 1,000 shares, right, and they say we're going to reverse split, so we'll change that block of 100 shares into 10 shares. So you'll have 100 shares instead of 1,000 shares. And then the price will go up, but it'll go up and then it'll average out, right? And it usually will go down. It's been like for me in my past, when that's happened, yeah, it's not been good for me. I've lost money. As a warning, just letting you know what happened to me. I owned a company and it did a reverse split, and then it went down and went down and went down and went down. The reverse split didn't stop the stock from losing the trend that it was on, was losing value. So, and then like you have to make a decision. What are you going to sacrifice right now that you can sacrifice that will benefit you more if you leave the money where it is and don't take advantage of another company. Their stock price has dropped a lot. Now you want to take another company that's doing good, right? It's going up, and you want to take a little bit off of that and go and buy the company that just dropped. Now, from my own experience, what's happened to me is that's happened, and then the stock price will climb back up little by little by little by little. And there was a time when that happened, and there was a reason that it happened. There was a posting I read about a member of the board quit. And when he quit, he just sold all his shares in the company and left. Then the price went down, and I bought it, right? Maybe is that inside information? I don't know. Because I read it on a book. Well, it was a long time ago. I don't remember the name of the person that posted it, that said that on the board. But it was like somebody was like in the board of directors and they were pissed off, right? They went out and they just, boom, took all their money and left. And it made the price go down. And it didn't and it was like obvious, right? That doesn't mean that the company is a bad company, right? That doesn't mean that if that's the cause of the stock to go down, then why the stock went down was not for a fundamental reason, not in the market, because their products were not selling, not because there was something, a trucking strike or, like that, a supply chain issue, or there was everything in the environment for the market at the time it wasn't showing any distress or anything. So there was no reason that stock went down. And that seemed like a logical reason, that it went just all of a sudden the stock dropped like 50%, a crazy amount. And I read that rumor, and then I bought the stock, and it started going up. It started going up. It started going up. It went up, and it went up, and it went up, and it went up. And that's like, I can honestly say I made out good in that. That was one stock I did well in. The other ones I've lost money in are solar power. It seems like there's not enough solar panels that's my own opinion. I mean, I am for adapting to our different way of producing less carbon dioxide gas by our activities as humans. So if we can, so if we can push electrons into the wires and make those electrons work, and be able to manage the power properly in a solar photovoltaic system. So it requires. Does anybody out there, do they ever think of of Gravitricity? You know, Gravitricity is a company in Scotland, and they have a mine, a vertical mine shaft, and they have weights that are on pulleys, and then there's a pulley that's attached to that drives a generator motor, and then there's another pulley that's driven by an electric motor. And what happens is there's an excess amount of power that's not needed at the time that's being produced, so they can like use that electrical energy and hoist the weight up the mine shaft. And then when there's a use, when there's no longer any source of power, but there's the heaviness of the weighted material in the tower, they lower that weight, and there's a pulley, and it's attached to a generator while the weight is being lowered. And there's other ideas where they build a tower, right? And the tower has like multiple cranes coming off of it, and they're lifting and lowering different parts of these blocks on it, and they're stacking them, lifting them and stacking them, and some are taking them off and putting them down. Man, it's doing just what that other company was doing, only they were just doing it with one motor and one generator and a pulley system. Now, why don't we do that with rail cars? You know, they could go on the side of a mountain where there's a really steep grade, and they could just build a parallel to a already existing railroad track. They could build like a narrow rail, special rail system that could carry like hundreds of tons, right, of rock or weight. They could put weights in it, right? And on the bottom of the mountain, it's all solar fields and wind turbines and that. And when there's an excess amount of power that's not being used that can't be put out on the grid, that's an excess amount, they can shunt that excess electrical power into a system of motors and generators, where the motor that's using electrical power off the solar and the wind, that excess amount of electrical power is pulling a rail car up the side of a mountain on along these rails. And so what happens is that rail car is really super heavy, but there's cables that are attached to motors that are pulling, that have pulleys that pull that huge weighted train car up the side of the mountain. And then when that train car, there's another rail next to that, there is a train car that's being lowered, right? Or they can lower them both. Once the one gets to the top, then the other one can start at the bottom and be raised up the hill by the excess electrical power that's being produced in the renewable energy area where they're generating power from solar and wind. So then if there's no wind and it's dark, and then they can use that weight, and they can lower the trains, these huge heavy train cars full of weight. They can lower those and then have a generator generate electricity from the weight being lowered down the mountain. And how come, like, can't they do that? I mean, can't they could do that with trucks too. Just have a big, like, take a bunch of shipping containers and put them on truck beds, right? And just have a whole bunch of them with like rocks, right? Just pile rocks in them, and then then hoist them up a road, build a big road up a real steep mountain, right? And have these big, huge trucks that are just carts that hold like rocks or some really heavy, and they can just have a road there and then just move them up and down on the side of the mountain on like a paved road, and use those as weights, right? As like for like a like the same principle as is like those flashlights, and you generate and you squeeze your hand and it generates, so it stores electrical power, and then you're using a light and you turn it off, but you're still, so it's not a chemical battery, but it's a gravity battery. So you're using the terrain, you're using an area of the ground, of the land, that you can push a weight up and then move a weight down. It could be railroad, it could be a railroad, railroads, or it could be a paved road, just specifically paved for real steep, for weighted pulleys or weighted truckloads of rocks, like being pulled with cables, and hoisted up, lifted up and rolled up this real steep incline. And then when there's needed power, they can use that weight and they can release it and have it have that cable run through a pulley that will run a generator, electric generator. So electrically generate power from the weight as that big truckload of rocks, or truckloads of rocks are moving down the mountain. So there's other ideas like that. I'm surprised that the wave energy thing hasn't happened. I'm surprised that they can't use plastic instead of steel, Do something with the plastic in the ocean, right? Get a special machine and put it on, have like international funded like bunch of like ocean line empty ocean tankers, or like vessels they could put out there in the middle of the patch, right? And they could just have a machine that's robotically that's all automatic, that could screen the plastic out of the water and put it on a barge. So they could take all the plastic out of the ocean and put it on a barge somehow. If it's too small, somehow separate it out of the seawater. If it's small, well, what choice do you have? You just leave it in the ocean, leave all that plastic in the ocean, all that garbage, just leave it there, let it pollute. So if there's a way, starting out, my idea was starting out small, right? Taking really, really small steps and doing really basic, simple things first. And then once I become, once I learn how to do just the simple things, just the basic, learn about something that's very basic, I can add to my knowledge and further my project out. So the solar electric's always been something that I'm really passionate about. I'm passionate about being able to produce electricity where you're not polluting the air. So you can walk around in a really busy downtown area where there's a lot of cars driving around. You can actually walk around on the street and breathe clean, fresh air while you're walking around downtown. Now, if you're driving across country, or you live in a rural area where you have to drive really long distances to get to town and back, and you want a vehicle that, if it breaks or if it needs servicing, there's people that are around that are skilled that can fix the vehicle for you. See, but if you live in a big city, in an urban area where it's very modern, there's going to be areas where they can service those kinds of cars. So it's not like you live in a really remote area and you have an electric car. So that then you're dependent on an expert, like a dealership, to, in the future, if the car needs servicing, you're dependent on that. Whereas in the past, people they knew about their car. They knew how their car worked. They could, if something broke, they could replace it themselves. They had tools to take things apart, put things back together on your ICE vehicles. But on these electric cars, how many people that you know that own an electric car that do servicing on it themselves, that that understand it, that know what to do if something goes wrong with it, or they have a really good, when they buy the car, do they have like a lifetime contract with the dealership? It sounds like you need that. It sounds like you go and you buy this car and you go, okay, you're gonna service it every like 20,000 miles. You'll check the oil, you'll check it, you'll balance it, you'll readjust things if they need adjusting or replacing. And you're going to have that done for as long as you own that car, for let's say 10 years. You're going to own, well, yeah. It seems like most people, they buy a new car every like 2 or 3 years or 4 years. People I've known do that quite frequently. Yeah, this channel started out with, wow, I have a nice big backyard, and how can I use it to make my life better for myself, right? So fruit trees was really obvious. I had to find a nursery nearby that sold those, the young sapling, right? So I could plant it in the ground and get it started. And the results I've gotten so far are the bada bing cherry. It had a fungus on the main stalk when I planted it. It like a white fungus, and it got all slime, and the slime came out it oozed out, and I had to chop that off. So on my bada bing cherry tree, the center portion of the stalk, it almost like to the second one up, the second row of stalks, I had to cut it off, and I put paint on it. And that tree, actually last year, it was phenomenal. It had so many cherries on it. The problem, this is kind of weird. I don't know how else I can explain this. The problem I have with cherries, for me, it's when I eat them, they have very, very little cherry flavor in them. It's just like I'm eating them and all I taste is the texture of flesh of a cherry, but I don't taste that sweet cherry flavor. Is it that? Well, it's because I'm a 62-year-old guy. I probably lost, some of my sense of smell and taste is probably not as sharp as it used to be. So I'm not tasting the full complement of the terpenes in the cherry. So it's one of the sidelines about getting old is that stuff happens, things break, your body starts breaking down. Like I don't really brush my teeth as much as I put fluoridated, I pick that fluoride toothpaste and I just rub it on my teeth. And I let it sit there on my teeth and dry up on my tooth. I don't rinse it. I don't rinse it and spit it out right away. I'll let that toothpaste sit on my teeth for a while. After a couple hours, I'll rinse my mouth out. Because all I care about is getting that material on the enamel. I'm trying to keep it out of my mouth, but keep it on my teeth. So maybe that'll stop my teeth from rotting as fast as they rot away as I get older. So that's the other thing about when you get older, you start thinking about, well, if I choke to death in my sleep, then somebody come to the house, have to somehow get rid of all the stuff, all of my belongings that I had. They'd have to sort out things. They'd have to they'd have to deal with real estate sale, and they'd have to find some. They could have my vehicles. They do something with vehicles, sell the vehicles, and the the downside is that, like, let's say you own a property and you have a lot of trees on it. You want to preserve the property so that you hope, as long as you own it, you don't cut all the trees down. So while you own the land, you don't want to saw down. You don't want to take down any trees that are on your land. So you want to keep all the trees that are there. But when you die, someone else takes over your land, and then they'll do whatever they want to do. If they want to they can cut all the trees down. So in a way, you're investing, right? And then that way, you're investing. If your beneficiary is someone that's an ecologically minded person, that's sensitive about the environment, or that's sensitive about the way the land looks around them, then they'll buy the house, and then they won't cut all the trees down. So that's another thing. Now, some people have children around them, right? They have young kids around them, and so they can be an influencer upon the minds of the young people that are still in grade school. So they'll sit down with them and discuss with them about investing their money, how they want their money to be invested, right? So you'll ask them, do you like you like these big, huge factories, right? Where all these animals are being like mutilated and chopped up, and do you think there's a good future for people to do that? Do you think that's good for people in the future? Do you think that's a good investment to make? I mean, you could be a pet owner, right? And you buy all your canned cat food and dog food, and you feed it to your animals. And so factory farming is kind of part of that. Even if you say, even if you eat vegetables and you're not a meat eater, so your pets or your your blood footprint are in your pets you own, that you buy food for. Unless you can afford to be have a vegan dog. I think there's some people that are vegan, their dogs are vegan. I'm not sure. I don't know. Probably need vitamins or mineral supplements, I would assume on that. And I mean, to be a vegan it takes a long time. Some people to adapt, to choose that lifestyle. If they do choose a lifestyle, if there's a lot of food available near where they live, that they can sustain themselves nutritionally, and their system, their bodily health can be maintained by their choices that they have at the grocery store, then those kinds of foods, somebody that chooses that way, that only eats foods that are made out of plants, because they're just an emotional person, and they've seen a lot of animals, and they've seen these animals being raised in barns, and they've given a lot of thought to their own diet and how their dietary choices are parts of other living things of their life that they had, and another living thing lived its life. You took that, you caused it, you were part of that system. So now you've made up your mind. You've seen you've seen the world the way it is. You see just as it is. Just look at how everything gets to where it gets, and what you do, and how you're participating in the life system around you. Then it used to be, if you wanted to just eat plant-based, it was hard to do. You had to prepare a lot of vegetables and fruit and a lot, and eat a lot of rice and beans, which I still do, and potatoes. So, but now you go to the store and everything's pre-made. You get Amy's Burritos, you can get the Gardein brand, you can get that, you can get Beyond Meat, you can get different kinds of yogurts and different kinds of nuts and grains and grain breads and that sort of thing are available at the store you go to. And you're happy with that. Your palate is satisfied with that, with those foods. And you don't need to, like, eat parts of an animal to enjoy yourself, to be happy. And you believe in that as an investor. So, or as a person, the way you consume your food, you invest in those companies that share your same values. So that's another way I go about businesses that I have. So there are value. You look at modern electronics, right? And open up a circuit, open up an electronics device, break it apart or whatever, something that's not used, that's not useful anymore, that's broken, and take a good look at what that circuitry is. Look at the materials there that are on those circuit boards. You think, wow, there's a lot of metal there, right? Different kinds of metal. And some of it's really not really a metal that can be easily mined. It takes a lot of energy, or it takes a lot of research and development to get that mineral, to get it to be in a certain composition, a certain purity, or a certain inside of those electrical components. But those kind of investments in mines that mine those metals and materials, that's cyclical. So you have to be aware of their cycle. There are cycles in the industry, like such as if there's a lot of demand for electronics. If there's all this demand for all this electronics and electronics circuits, and that there's going to be a greater need for those minerals, so for those elements. So if you think about companies involved in that kind of business, now I thought to myself, if they can use all of this land that's not being used, that's just wasted space, but keep safety in mind, okay? I always say safety first, right? If whatever business or whatever idea you're having, make sure it's implemented and you're thinking ahead about anything having to do with health and safety. Now I notice as the vehicles become more electrified, there's going to be a need for charging those electric vehicles. So personally, I missed the boat on a big, a popular electric car company. I missed out on that, on their, when it went public, right? When that company went public. So I didn't dive in and pour a whole bunch of my capital into that right away. But I was more interested in specific kinds of companies that did specific kinds of things. It's not so much cars, because cars always seem to me to be, it takes a lot. It seemed like it seems like, well, it's very competitive. That's another thing. But it seems like, well, I drive a Geo Metro. It's a 99 Geo Metro. And I have a junker that's a 90. It probably still runs. I just need a battery in it. And that's sitting in my yard. And I thought, well, here's a form factor. This car, when I bought it, it was brand new at Geo Metro. I sat in that little 3-cylinder Geo Metro. I I was looking through the windshield and driving it on the road, and I felt like this car was a perfect size car. It wasn't too big of a car. And I really liked sitting in my Geo Metro. I really liked driving around. It was a fun car to drive. And okay, hey Brian, yeah, you're from Spanaway, or go to Bethel High. I didn't go to Bethel High, so I don't. I'm a transplant, so I've lived in different areas. Not so much north. I've lived like north of here. I lived in Snohomish County for a while. Actually owned a house on a river, near a river. It was a beautiful place. I sold it. Moved for a job, and then I moved again for another job. And I got hired full time at a place, so I moved here. And then I worked there, and my wife got sick, and I went into the payroll office and I said, I quit. It's my last day. Here's my badge, and sayonara, goodbye, nice knowing you. I walked out the door. Now the HR manager said, oh no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to quit because there's a severance package. For every year you've worked here, you'll get a week's pay. And we're closing the doors. We're shuttering the building in such and such a date, right? So I looked at him and I said, well, I got a wife she's an invalid in bed, and I'm taking care of her. Most of my time spent helping her, doing dishes, doing laundry, cooking her meals, making sure she's comfortable in bed, doing house cleaning, and just spending every moment of my waking day to help just to make my wife more comfortable while she was getting sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker, and she passed away in the bed in the house. So, and left me without a severance package, but I quit and I was able to take care of my wife and help her. And that's all. That's what my reward was. The money, missing out on the big bonus when they close the doors, I missed out on that, but I got to spend time with my wife. I'm happy about that. I have no regrets about that. So, it was a good place to work. It was a good run shop. There was, they were very, the one thing you can't emphasize enough for any kind of manufacturing facility is safety, right? You want to put safety first and think about the environment of the workers, right? If there's like a lot of dust in the air, or there's fumes from paint, or there's heavy machinery being hoisted and lifted and put down, and there's machines running, and it's the people got to be really sharp. They have to be on their toes. They can't be, and there's safety meetings, right? There was regular, we had a team safety leader. They would have meetings every week, right, about issues like what this piece of equipment could do, or how it should be maintained, or what to look for as far as how to operate something safely, or what to look for, or how to be more aware of potential hazards in the workplace. So there was a lot of thought and involvement with every employee about how the workplace is a safe workplace. Number one, that's what we all are aiming for. The goal is to not have any injuries. Everybody goes home, nobody's hurt. And there was a very if there were close calls, then they would report that. There would be an incident report, and then it would be brought up at the meeting about what could have happened if that had not have been addressed right away. And stuff happened, right? I mean, guys, they weren't aware of the weight from lifting, material. They put it in an area designed for light for only holding a few items at a time. So what they did is they overloaded that rack or the mount, and all the material just fell in the warehouse right on that where that was. So there was, well, the bosses were pissed. Oh my gosh. That was, yeah, somebody could have really been hurt if they were walking by, or if they were in the area where they were when they were moving the material around. So it was fortunate in that. You can't, and you can't knock a company. You can't begrudge your employer for the drug screening and random testing of urine for intoxicants, substances that if the worker used cannabis on their own time, but it was still in their blood, right? So they're going to work the next day and they still have the THC residue in their bloodstream. Then that THC residue in their bloodstream could make an accounting error for thousands of dollars, or that could not be paying attention, and it's something, piece of equipment gets not mishandled improperly, or there was just neglect, or people weren't paying attention, right? So that is associated with inability to focus, inability to remember short-term and attention. And all the employer wants is that employee to get as much work done as quickly as possible in the safest way. And if there's something that in a lifestyle that employee, like even Henry Ford, right? He didn't let his employees consume alcohol or overconsume alcohol, or there was people that lived in his towns. The whole town was built, just everybody that lived in the town worked at the place, and that they couldn't, if somebody was reported that they were drunk, then they would fire them, or give them put them on probation. So there's businesses are very competitive with other businesses, so they want their employees to be on their game, right? They want their employees to be physically and mentally fit and very and quick and responsive, and be able to do their job safely without creating any hazards for their fellow employees. If somebody goes to work and they're under the influence of something and it affects their judgment, and that's a safety, that's not only unsafe for that person, but also it's the people that work around them. But and then the insurance is just if the smallest injury of any type at all just makes the insurance payments just go skyrocketing. The company just goes berserk because their insurance goes up so much, for every tiny little injury that happens. So, I'm understanding of that, and that they were on that. They didn't emphasize, they couldn't emphasize safety enough in the workplace, and I felt like I was kind of that was good to work at a place like that. I was proud that I worked at a place that they had a policy in place that was that way, that protected the workers there and protected the company and profits too. So even if somebody's using a drug on their own time, and then it loses its intoxicating effect within a few hours, or 8 hours, or 4 hours, or whatever, how long the person will high for. Well, if they do that, then they should leave plenty of room between them doing that and then having to go back to work. Like someone that they're going to go on a 3-week vacation or 2-week vacation maybe, and then on the night they get off work, they go and they take a rip on a bong or eat a gummy or candy or something, right? So, but then they don't do it after that. Then 2 weeks goes by, they're back in work. So that might be acceptable. I mean, but if you're a responsible person and you just get high and you go to work and you're high at work, you should be fired. You should not have people in an area where it's dangerous that are working and are high. They should be fired. I'm I'm straight on a policy about a drug-free workplace. But personally, for like somebody that never drives a car, very rarely, like maybe once or twice a month, I'll drive to the grocery store, and they're not doing anything that would be a hazard or be dangerous, and they're on their own property. They're over the age of 21, and they're buying a product that's sold by an established bud tender or pot shop. So, and then they smoke, and they're not operating heavy machinery. They're not driving a motor vehicle. They're in their own home in the private area, and they're retired, and they smoke cannabis. And what do? They like sweep the floor. They smoke the weed, and then they do dishes, or they cook, prepare food, or they vacuum the floor, or they wash their windows, or they clean their car, or they put a video on, they watch a video, or they read a book, or they go out and they do yard work, clean up their yard. So maybe some people like get high and they're not weird. They're not acting strange. They're not doing anything that's not ordinary behavior. If somebody had a camera that was on inside of your house and they were watching you all the time in every room, and even on the outside of your house, seeing what you do all the time and recording you and observing you, they wouldn't see if you got high, you smoked weed, and you were watching them on the camera. You would think they were just a perfectly normal person, not behaving oddly at all. So, I mean, if you're like really, really strict about using any kind of intoxicating substances, then you should be mainly concerned, if you have children, mainly concerned about alcohol, because alcohol can kill you. Mostly you pass out and then you vomit and you choke to death on your vomit. That can happen. If you're with other people and you're getting drunk with other people that are reckless, and they're not looking out for you. If you're drinking with someone else or other people, and they're like encouraging you to drink more, and they're like trying to go drink more, come on, have a drink, and they're like pushing, drinking, or you're like, they're having a contest. You're gonna outdrink, I'll outdrink you, you're gonna outdrink me, like that, and they're doing that. These young people that do that, then you need to become aware of that. And if there's no way you can stop your kid from doing that, just buy alcohol and have it at home for him. Let him drink at home, and make sure he's okay. He's underage. As long as you're within sight of you, you can see he's not going to do anything crazy. He's not going to fall down or like pass out and throw up and choke to death. You'll be there. So I'm just saying, if you're somebody that has alcohol in your house, and then you have kids too, you should probably educate them really early about alcohol and about what alcohol does to you, and why you should never drink and get drunk. And if you drink, only drink like a little bit and then put it down, and don't drink. Never drink a lot. Never drink to excess where you're throwing up, you're passing out, because it's very dangerous. You could wander into the road and get hit by a car, or you could get in a car yourself and try to drive it, or you could a kid has to be warned about these things. You can drink, and then you get to a point where you're so drunk that you don't have judgment anymore, and all you want to do is stay drunk. You're in a high state of being really drunk, and you really, really like that feeling of being really drunk, and then you start coming down, and you want more. You drink more to stay up, to stay high, to stay drunk, and that's alcoholism. So if there's a sign of that in your child, if your child is doing that or has done that, they're an alcoholic, and then you need to take them to AA meetings. You need to coach them. You need to be a life coach to them. Give your child proper guidance. Help them when they're maturing and they're younger. Give them access to information, and watch what they do on the internet. Don't let your kids go on the internet and watch porn. There should be. I was listening to a guy. I think his first. He's one of my. I subscribe to him, and I don't agree with I don't agree with him sometimes. Sometimes I agree with him, but on other points I don't agree with him. But I was listening to one of his rants, and he was talking about that if you're under the age of 18, you should not have internet access that's unrestricted. That if you're 18, if you're 18 or younger or under the age of 18, the only internets you should be supervised by an adult, by your parent, when you're on the internet. So that's just my opinion on that. So I see people. I was raised differently. I came time period where we didn't have computers, we didn't have phones, or the internet. So we as kids, we had to go and physically do things outdoors. We had to kick ball around. We had to throw a ball through a basketball hoop. We rode bicycles, skateboards. We went to the park. We involved ourselves. We were very active people. We didn't have a thing we were looking at all the time and playing with it, playing a game on it, or doing that. If anything at all, we would. For me, the escape was going to the library. I could go to the library, and I could sit in the library, and I could just go browse down the aisles, and I pull a book out here, I pull a book out there. I go to the magazine area, and I pull a couple magazines off there. And then I go back to a desk out in the corner of the library, and I'd sit down, and I just go and let my mind kind of scan through things, go through the book and read just parts of the chapter, read the index, or go in and read a magazine article or two, and spend time in the library and try to learn about different things. But I don't know what kids to do. I guess everything on that thing, right, they're looking at, I guess all that library that would be at the library is right there on that thing for them, or their tablet, right? Do they have when they go to school, does the school give them a tablet and everything that's physically all the books that are in that library are scanned and on the tablets that they have, so they could just flip through pages of any book in that library. Now, I learned too late, right? For me, math, right? I'll give you the lowdown on my experience with learning mathematics. For me, math, it wasn't hard for me to do. But math, when you're sick, when you're a kid, and you don't go to math class for a week or 2 weeks, right? Because you're sick a lot and you lose time in math class. Then you go back to school and you're in your math class. You don't have a clue. You got to start all over again. So that was my pet peeve when it came to math. The key that I only learned is when I went to the junior college, I finally learned how to study my math. It's like you do the homework, you do the assignments out of the textbook, you go from your math class, you go to the library and do all your math work right after class. Don't waste any time. Don't have a math class do something else. When you have your math, when you take a course in mathematics, you need to set aside at least an hour after every class. You need an hour or 2 hours in the library right after class and do the assignment, do the exercises out of the math book. And preferably the answers to all the odd numbered problems are in the back of the book. So you can, as you do each problem, you can check yourself. So you know, it guides you to know whether or not you're making a mistake or not doing the mathematical procedure. Now, as a young child, I was not taught to study that way. What we did is we went to school, we had a class, and then we had another class, and then we had another class, and then we had another class. We had history, we had English, we had math, we had science, we had physical education, which absolutely a must for 1 through 12th. Every kid must have physical education. They must be physically active at one each day for like an hour. You have to have that in schools. It's absolutely, you cannot have a program where you don't have physical education at school. Any school out there that has no physical education program it's a failure. If the kids aren't exercising every day regularly, the school's failing. Teachers are failing. The kids are going to fail because you need to actually be physically active, and it helps you learn, helps you retain your knowledge in your studies. Otherwise, you're just going to sit there, vegetate, and you're going to forget everything. Your body, you need to have the blood circulating in your body. So that's you're somebody, if you're somebody that you know me and you know where I live, right? And I don't mind that I pay my fair share of taxes, as long as I know that money is being used for, like, the child, he goes to the classroom and it's comfortable for him to be there. The air, it's warm enough, it's in the winter, and it's cool enough in the summer. I want to know that child in that classroom has up-to-date materials for learning. They have audio, video materials that help them learn, teaching aids, that there's tutors for each child. Each child, if they get behind, that somebody can tutor them to get them further, to help them keep up with the classwork. Now, that's kids that miss school, because that was my problem in school. Why I did so bad is I missed classes. I was sick, so I missed the exit, and I got behind because everybody in the class was all on the same, learning the same thing at the same time. Which is like, if it's a history class, you can kind of get, but if it's math, math, you have to keep up with it. You have to have a tutor. If your kid isn't doing good in math. But if you pay your taxes and the teachers that are at the school are really good at teaching the students math and teaching them science and teaching them history, and their teachers are really well, they're really well educated, and they're knowledgeable about the subjects that they're teaching, and the kids getting a good education at the school. So it's like, well, I don't mind paying taxes, and I don't mind if it's like being used for, if I want to go and I want to run around on a track, that's a school where I'm paying taxes on that school. But I can't go and just put on tennis shoes and shorts and run around on that running track. I'm not allowed to do that. As a citizen, as a taxpayer, I'm not allowed to go on that jogging, on that running track and run. And that kind of pisses me off. It's like, well, I'm paying for that, and I should be able to just go on a whim and take running shoes and my get on jogging suit and go out and run laps on that in that area. It should be fenced off. There shouldn't be a locked fence around that. It pisses me off. Every time I look at that, I see barbed wire and a big lock fence around a beautiful running track, all right? It's like, why is that fence even there? Take all that fencing down and leave all that open. What's the problem? Why is there razor wire on a school, on an athletic field, right? Why do they have razor wire around an athletic field and a big, huge chain link fence? So, I mean, you live around here. Maybe you know where I'm talking about. So, but maybe I'm really making a big deal about it. Maybe it's really open all the time. I just need to go there and, and just next time I'm driving by, just stop and park in the parking lot and go and put some running shoes on, run around the track a few times. See, where I'm from, Southern California, we had parks, right? And there was no, you could just go to the park and run around in the field. There was like a baseball diamonds, and you could jog around the field, right? No one would stop you. There was no barbed wire fence around the parks. See, you pay all these taxes, right? Well, you should be able to use those facilities. They shouldn't be locked out of using the facilities. You're paying for, if I'm a taxpayer and I'm paying for that, I should be able to use that. The other thing, there could be an issue. I don't know if it's an issue now, but it could be an issue in the future about the water table. So what you do is you create a cement barrier on the surface of the ground, and it keeps all that water that would have normally fallen onto the ground and been absorbed into the soil, into the rocks. That water that would have been absorbed is now covered by a big, huge building. So is a water table, are they thinking about water tables? Does anybody think about water tables that could or would or not be affected by all these buildings that are going up? And I'm all for jobs, right? It's good that people there's lots of work available for people to do. I'm not somebody that's like trying to subvert, like complain and make subvert employee employment, or certain kinds of fields of work. But I'm just concerned about, if you live around somewhere and they keep covering the ground, and eventually the water table will drop. Or they'll have to drill the wells in a different place. I don't know. Maybe has anybody thought about that? Did they think about that when they do the planning? And the other thing is traffic, right? You got all this highway that's penciled in, they're supposed to finish the highway, right, and make it go all the way to the 5. You know what I'm talking about? What's the deal with that? How come 176, it still just turns there on Spanaway Loop Road? Why doesn't 176 go all the way to Interstate 5? What's holding that project up? Because once they do that, I don't know how they're going to deal with all the truck traffic. They got all these warehouses. They're building warehouse. Where all these trucks? They have to get to the Interstate 5, right? And that was the whole thing, was they were going to build the cross-base highway. But is it some oak trees? Can they maybe use a piece of machinery or equipment and dig up these oak trees and maybe move them to another area that's out of that when they do build the road in, that they're able to move the trees and not kill them, not just cut them down, but move the wildlife, move that, and then make the highway. What's keeping it? Is it that they ran out of money? I don't know. But I was excited when they put that up in planning and they said, now we're going to build a cross-base highway. I was like, wow, right on. It'll be like really fast to get to Interstate 5. My property value will probably go up, right? It'll be easier for people to commute and all that. But I don't know. What do you think? Yeah. Okay. I went to the train station in Tacoma. They have the Amtrak station has moved, and it's now in a new terminal there on another street, but it's a few blocks away from the old Amtrak station. But I took an Uber from Spanaway to the Amtrak station. And the Uber driver, he gets to the front of the old station, and it's all boarded up. It's closed up. There's nothing on my phone that says it's been relocated. There's no sign on the old Amtrak station that says the new station is here and give the address. And the app on Google Maps, it says I'm at the Amtrak station. On the app, on the map, it says this is Amtrak station. And the Uber driver, he pulls into the driveway, right? He's sitting there in his car, and he's like, well, I got to go. I got somebody else I got to pick up. And I said, wait. And I called Amtrak, and they told me on the phone, oh, you got to go up the street, and it's just right up there, and you go left, and then it's there. And then I said, okay. And then we went. But it was like, why wasn't that on the app? And then why wasn't there a sign on the old Amtrak station right there that said to go to the new station? I don't know. You wouldn't believe the amount of taxes that I'm paying more now for my homeowner. Private property taxes are like, when I moved here in 2006, my property taxes were like $1,200 a year, and now they're like $2,400 a year. So I'm thinking of moving. I get all these calls from random investors. We want to buy your property. We want to buy your property. Here's your property. We're interested in how much do you want for your property. We want to buy it. We want to buy it. We want to buy it. And I said, well, my wife just died, right? I'm not really in a good position right now to make a decision on whether or not I want to move. And moving's an expense, and it's a hassle. And when you don't have someone around to help you out, when you're an old guy like me and you're all by yourself, then moving's a hassle. It's expensive. And well, what do they want to give me for my house? Tell me, how much do you want to give me for this property? Don't just call me and hey, we want to buy it. We want to buy it. Well, you want to buy it. Well, how much do you want to give me for it? That should be the second sentence that you say. First thing you should say is, do you want to sell it? The second thing is we want to give you $500,000 for your property. We want to give you $650,000 today, right now. Sight unseen, no inspections, quick closing, cash right now, 30 days. Well, tell me that, right? Just don't call me and bug me and text me and send me mailers and just keep saying, we want to buy it, we want to buy it, we want to buy it. Well, tell me how much you're willing to pay me for it. Well, why can't people just be like upfront about it right now? Why do they have to keep wasting my time? Should I list my house on Zillow and say I want $1 million for it? And will that keep people from bugging me? They want to buy it. Because I don't really want to sell it right now. Right now, I don't want to sell my house. I want to stay here for a while because my wife just died, and I'm kind of not in a good position to make a big decision like that right away. So, when you lose somebody and you're grieving them, and it's like, well, is that like you don't want to do quick decisions like all of a sudden? So, and I'm looking to hire somebody to do some work for me because I'm not a skilled carpenter. I'm not an electrician, and I'm not really, really good with plumbing. I can kind of do plumbing, but I'm not really good at it. But as far as carpentry work, I'm not really good at carpentry. So I need help repairing or remodeling. And when I ask for help, I get people that are way, 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 way over on the other side of town. They respond to my inquiry. So I don't get people that just live a couple miles away that are can come here and do the work and then go home and not have to be driving around a lot. So I'm thinking about when I get a job quoted, and I feel a little bit guilty, so I give them a tip, right? From now on, if I ask for a quote on work, if I don't accept if I don't accept the price, I'll give them a consolation. I'll give them $50 or $100, right? Say thank you for your time and give them $100. So it won't be a complete wash for somebody that's quoting work from me. or quoting a job, bidding on a job that I'm having work done for. See, it seems like it's really difficult to hire people that know what they're doing and that they're not having to travel from a long distance away to do the work. I don't know if you've ever had that problem with hiring somebody, or you have to go far away. They have to come from really far away. And the other thing is, like retirement, right? I thought retirement was going to be me and my wife walking down a white sandy beach in the tropics somewhere, staying in a nice hotel where there's a swimming pool and playing tennis and being outdoors a lot in the sun. And now it's just me and my cats in this. Yeah, a cat. I got to tell you something out there about cats, right? This is the thing about cats. Don't breed a cat. If a cat is in heat or is mating or can mates, try to stop it. Try to keep them. I've had every cat I've gotten it fixed, right? And I've taken good care of my cats too. Once they're fixed and I have them, they're indoors all the time. I only had one or two cats. Once, my first cat, she was wild. She was just like terrorizing the house, so I had to let her out. And if you have to have young cats, take a room in your house, right? Take everything out of that room. If you have a house, or if you have a spare room, because if you want a cat, you got to expect there's going to be damage. The cat will do damage to your house if you're not careful. Cat will damage your property in a really bad ways too. If they urinate on the floor and it goes into the flooring, you have to pull the subfloor. You have to pull the floor off, and then if there's odors that are in the wood, right, from all the urine, and then you got to go in there and you got to like treat the wood so there's odors stay in the wood, and then put the floor back on. So, or completely take the drywall off the walls and replace that, and your carpeting. But hindsight's 2020, right? Hindsight's always 2020 for me with cats. But I can tell you, I can give you some pointers out there with a cat. There's a new product on the market, and it's made out of pine, compressed pine. And you use it in your litter box, and the cats, to get them used to it, you have it with your other litter too. So you gradually wean them off of the other litter, so you can half and half it in the boxes. Then once it's the pine only, you can remove the feces and leave the urine in the tray, and it gets absorbed into the pellets, and the pellets break apart. Now it says you can't. It says, nowhere does it say on the packaging anywhere that you can recycle the material. Now, of course, feces that's a health hazard, and you should dispose of it in a sealed bag, and I put it out on the curb in a sealed bag. And it doesn't take up all the weight, right? So the garbage company, they're paying for weight, right? So the heavier something is, the more it costs, because it takes more fuel, more energy to move the material around. And this is the problem I had with the clay litter, which is the cheapest litter, right? I was using clay litter. And I'm going to tell you what I did with the clay litter. I'm making a fool out of myself. I'm going to embarrass myself with this. I'm telling you what I do with cat litter, right? So this is what I used to do with clay litter. I'd scoop it out and put it in the bag, and I'd scoop the wet gravel out, and I put that in a separate bag. And then I would take the litter, the gravel, the clay, without any poop in it. I would take that and I would spread it out in my yard. just even try to evenly spread it out around my driveway, keep weeds down or whatever. And it was like, well, and then disposing of the other part of it wasn't real heavy in my trash barrel. So I have 5 cats, right? So I have a lot of litter boxes. But now that I have the pine, right, it doesn't smell. It breaks apart. It doesn't, and it's like when I go to get rid of it, right? This is the thing, right here. I'm like, wow, I'm so glad now I can get rid of the cat litter and just put it on my lawn. Just sprinkle it on my lawn, really really gingerly, not pile it, but just like sprinkle it on the lawn. It will just decompose. And it's like $20 a bag, right? You get like I have a bag over here. So, this is one of my favorite companies. Yeah. As an investor, this stuff right here. It looks like it actually looks kind of like the wood stove, right? A pellet stove, right? The pellets for a pellet stove, they look just like that. But when the cat urinates on it, it dissolves. It's got in the odor. You never smell cat urine in the box. There's you just change it, right? You just change when it's really wet. You just scoop it out and you leave the dry part in there, and that'll last me a whole month. Whereas clay litter, I had to get like 4 bags, 4 10-pound, like 3 or 4 10-pound bags a month. And I was going through that stuff but this is so much easier. Really, it's one of my favorite companies. Arm & Hammer, one of my favorite. Church & Dwight. Church & Dwight product. So, and as an investor, I own stock in this company. They've done pretty good, actually. They haven't gone down. All these tech stocks, you're buying them. You hear about them on the news all the time. That's all they talk about on the news is these certain stocks. Why is that? Why is it they only talk about these certain stocks? They'll never talk about mid cap or small cap companies. Very rarely. It's always blah 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 blah. So you hear the same name. You hear the same company names over and over and over and over and over and over again on these these alphabet networks. So as an investor, there's way more in the world that's like, guy, that's a good product. I'm really I'd be proud to be part of that company, to own part of that company. They do pay a dividend. They're not a real big dividend payer. They do pay a dividend. And they make the baking soda. They make the Trojan condoms. They make the not rubber. No, that's not Rubbermaid. Their other products are, they got the baking soda, the toothpaste, the condoms, and I think there's another product. I'm not sure what it is in that company. But you buy a company and then they own smaller companies. They're under they're a parent company to children companies. And those child companies are I know one, Newell Industries, Newell Brands. They got Elmer's glue, they got the Sharpie marker, they got the paper Parker pens, they got the Rubbermaid product line, then they got a Mr. Coffee, and I think they have some other kitchen appliances. So that's a good Newell Brands. That's a good company. I own stock in that company. So that's been doing pretty good. The stocks that are going down and have gone down and down and down and down are the solar companies, the smaller, mid-cap, small-cap solar. And some of them are they do installs and then they arrange for a payment plan and they have a grid connect they do that as a business. They'll set you up and connect it to the grid for you, and they'll do the maintenance and that on it for you. But it's on your property, and you just basically you're leasing it, or you're making payments on the system, and then until a certain period of time you own it. You reach a certain break-even point on your power usage. Your cost per kilowatt hour off the grid is equal to or more than the cost of producing the electricity from a solar panel system on your house. And you're getting credited for that power usage. There's 2 meters. One is the utility meter, and the other meter is for metering power that goes back into the utility. That keeps a record of that for you. And I really, really believe in solar. But the problem, I believe in solar more ground mount. Okay, I'm not so much crazy about a roof solar panels on a roof. It's not, unless your roof is like really good at it. It's got the right pitch and it's right facing south, right? It's a really good open area around it. There's no trees, and it's like got the perfect pitch for all the seasons, and even adjusting too, if you can adjust it. So, but you want a ground mount solar rack that will adjust automatically. So, and then you need a ground mount system that also you can protect property from being, you can protect your neighbors from your property being, let's say there's a really heavy windstorm and the wind just blows like crazy, like a tornado, right? And it hits those solar panels on your roof. Well, now that solar panel that's part of your roof, the roof has been sucked off the building, and that solar panel's flying in the air at 100 miles an hour. So there was an incident where there was a tornado that went through a small town, and I noticed on the aerial photographs there was an area where there was these solar panels that were just strewn around on the streets. That flew off the building and were flying around in the air. These whole solar panels. They didn't stay on the roof. They flew off the roof with the roof when the roof got sucked off in the tornado. Now I looked at the Google map, right? The satellite image of that same area, that same town, and I saw all these roofs with the solar panels on the roofs. And the tornado came through and it ripped all that roofing off, and it took all the solar panels with it in the windstorm. So now if there was a designated area in the town where it was like an old parking lot, or they could build it and anchor, they could anchor the solar panels to the mounting system, to where if there was a heavy wind, the solar panel would not go flying off and be a hazard. A solar panel flying at 90 miles an hour and hits something or a building or some other property creates a huge amount of damage. So that a racking system that's ground mounted rack that you can adjust if there is a windstorm, you can put them in a position, maybe in a way where you can maybe go into a mode where they'll go down, or something where they'll be flat on the ground and they won't be in the air. They can go flat, and then when the storm's over, they raise them up. Or they can have the ground, the mounting on the solar panels could be so well mounted, so solid, that any wind at all hitting that solar panel, it won't dislodge it and make it a projectile going 50, 60, 70 miles an hour in the air. And hailstorms too. If there's a big hailstorm, solar panels got to withstand that hail coming down. So, and then you got to maintain if they get dirty, right? If they're in an area where there's a lot of dust or dirt that's blowing around, they lose their efficiency. So they have to be maintained. Someone has to go out there, and they don't have a system in place where they can spray water on them. And then you have to be able to, this is the other thing about roof mounted solar. You see a set of solar panels on a roof, and then you see another set underneath that, right? And then you see another set underneath that. Now, in the future, if some of your panels are going out or they're losing their power, you have to go in and replace those panels. So are you going to dismount? Are you going to unmount all those solar panels that are on the outside edge to get to the middle solar panel? How do you now you got to go up on the roof and you got to tie yourself down and anchor yourself down and have that, remove it and put another one back up there. Yeah, even though the roof is like, yeah, it's good. It's on the house, right? It's nearby where you're using the power. That's good. Your power usage and your power production are close together. You get it? So you don't have a long distance. Your power isn't traveling long distances. I like that. That's good. But a roof, a ground mount that tilts, that can tilt for the season, right? That's perfectly south facing. That'll every week it'll move, or a little bit. And then it's in such a place where if there is a windstorm, it's anchored down good enough to withstand a high wind. If a tornado hits it, so that's what I was thinking of. And it seems to me like maybe investing in peripheral companies that don't directly make solar panels, but companies that make like the electronics for controlling the power flow, or I think my battery's going to die. Anyhow, this has gone on a long time. I may not publish this. It may be that, I'm not dressed properly. I'm not wearing the right clothes. I don't have the right lighting. The picture is blurry, or it's not really professionally done. Like I didn't have a script written. I was going to bullet points. I was going to talk about these, but I tried to keep it on investing, right? That's where I was heading. Investing, the stock market. And one of the problems is you buy a stock and it goes down, then it goes down, and it goes down, and it goes down. You buy some more and then it goes down. You buy some more and it goes down. You buy some more and it goes down. It goes down, right? So you're like getting nervous about the stock and the company. You're thinking about, wow, maybe I should get out while I can, and maybe I'm just trying to catch a falling knife. It's cutting me up around trying to catch it. So say la vie, right? Okay, boom. Sell, take my losses and sell. But it was never, I was thinking in the very beginning that scenario could work itself out. While I was buying the stock and it was falling, and then I was buying more, and it was falling, I was buying more. I wanted to own the company. I wanted to own that business. I want to be part of that business. If I had to work and go to a job every day, that company that I'm buying stock in, that's the kind of company I would want to go to work for. Now, if you're like me and you go to a trade school in a junior college and you never had a 4-year degree, and you didn't go to like a job fair where there was like all these booths set up with these companies' names right on each booth, and they would like shake your hand, and then you give them your resume and you talk to them about what the business is and what the company does, and then they'd hire you right from that job fair that you go to. At the university where you go to, they have it all. Their university has endowments that people that have graduated from the college, and then they give a donation. They're given endowment to the school and they work at a certain business. Then they're more apt. That college is more apt to hire out to those businesses from there. So I'm just going to go because my battery's going, and it's time to end this stream. Yes, end the stream.